So John, how large can we make a vSAN cluster? How big can we make this thing?
Okay, so while vSphere may support up to 96 hosts on a cluster, vSAN is still at 64 today. I know this sounds like a limit, but let's start doing some maths here real quick. So you can have up to 5 disk groups in a host, each with up to 8 drives, 7 capacity. So that's 35 drives in a host. So if we take that, and let's say we used 8 terabyte storage devices, that would be 280 terabytes in a host, which is, a non-trivial amount. And then if I multiply that out, I'm going to get, I think if I put that to 64, I think I get just shy of 18 petabytes raw. Now, I would probably run out of money when trying to build a cluster this size, but let's assume, John's, I don't know, got all of the money. Maybe I was into Bitcoin before all the other kids or something. So, 18 petabytes is pretty much, but let's not stop there. Now, that is raw. There are RAID overheads. So, I might use RAID 5 or RAID 6. So there's a slight overhead, but then there's dedupe and compression. And maybe I'm doing full clone VDI or something, and, very duplicative. And so in that case, I could potentially go up to, again, this is perfect conditions of you just cloning the same VM over and over again, maybe 10x that. Now, we can stop there for a minute and think, do I really want 180 petabytes of data being stored on a cluster? I'll probably split that out. But the key thing to think about here is that vSAN is going to scale beyond probably what your needs are. I know some people like to take a spec sheet and say, well, the 500 version of this storage system can handle 2 petabytes and the 600 can handle 6. And that's great. But do you actually need 2 or 6 petabytes? And do you want it all in one rack, or one cluster? So as we look at, other limits, we've got multiple terabytes of memory per host. You're probably going to hit some other operational limits of how many VMs you want. Typically, we try to say don't go beyond 200 VMs on a host. Some of that's driven by object limits. Some of that's driven also by just things like the CPU scheduler. If I start putting that many VMs on a cluster, getting enough cores and enough memory to be able to feed them and not have a 40-to-1, vCPU to CPU over subscription ratio. So, but no, vSAN clusters can scale quite a lot. And one thing also to note is the vSAN file services, those shares, they can scale. There is no maximum. It's basically whatever the POSIX maximum is, which is somewhere in the exabytes. So there's no inherent scaling limitation. It's really going to be more budget and operational driven.
Well, and I would imagine too that, the good part for our customers is they're not limited to just a single cluster. If that 8 petabytes isn't enough, they can have another cluster that is just that large. And we kind of reminding ourselves that a cluster is just a boundary of physical resources, and the scalability of vSAN continues on beyond just the defined limit of that cluster, which sometimes I would imagine is a little misleading for some of our customers.
Yeah, and with HCI mesh, you can have multiple clusters that you could have mount each other or be mounted by compute. And using SPBM, you could even do placement. So that way, you could set, I want this to be placed on a cluster that's all flash, that uses compression, is encrypted, and it will help automate some of that placement logic to show which data stores would meet that service. So you could even kind of treat multiple clusters as kind of a meta pooled resource, not necessarily a wide stripe and you're placing data across multiple, but this isn't really a scale boundary so much as just how large of a bucket you want to build, and then how many buckets do you want to set next to it.